Okay, so today's lesson, we're continuing on with data. Back in my day when we did algebra, data was not a part of the study of algebra. So this particular part, although it has some, we use some algebra in some of it, but some of it's very similar to what we did last year in 7th grade. So we're defining measures of central tendency, knowing when to use each measure. It's really important that you know when. That's kind of something we touched on a little bit in 7th grade but didn't talk a lot about. We're going to talk about measures of dispersion. We're going to find those measures, and then we're going to be comparing data. Probably number 4 is a big one. It's important to be able to compare data. Probably most of the questions that you get aren't just going to say, here, find the mean of this data. It's going to ask you to compare two sets of data, which will mean you'll need to find those measures and then use them in a discussion. Okay, so our first objective is to define measures of central tendency. Central just means center or middle. So it's like finding measures of the middle and knowing when to use each measure. So mean, we'll try using the actual pen there. Here we go, mean, median, and mode are the measures of central tendency that we use to summarize a set of data. So the first measure, let's use mean. Does anyone remember how to find the mean? What do you do to find the mean? Rosa?
Add all the numbers and divide it by the
Good. You add all the numbers together and you divide by the number. So you find the sum of all of your values, and then you divide by the number of values. Another name for the mean is the average. So when you're finding the average, that's what you're finding is the mean. The mean is what's used in grading calculations. So when Skyward is calculating your grade point average, or when it's calculating your average in a class, it's adding up all of your points together and then dividing by the total number of points to find the mean. The mean is a good measure of center to use when there is no outlier. Does anyone remember what an outlier is? Zan?
It's like the number that is a really low number.
Good, good. It's a number that's not close to all of the rest, either a really low number or a really high number. So if you forgot about that, you could write yourself a little note up here that an outlier is just a number much larger or smaller. It kind of lies out there. That's why it's called an outlier. It's out away from the other numbers. Much larger or smaller than the rest of the data. Okay, next measure of center is the median. You can tell me what the median is. Sophia?
The middle.
The what?
Once you put it in sequential order.
Good. Once you put it in sequential order, she said, it's the middle value. So we arrange them in or numerical or sequential order, and it's just the middle value. If you have an even number of data values and you have two numbers in the center, what do? Colin?
Yeah, they're not combined.
Good. Add them up and divide by 2. So you're finding the mean, actually, of those two numbers. So median is the middle value when numbers are in order. And then if two middles you find the mean of those two middles. The median is a better measure of center if we do have an outlier. It's less affected by the outlier. If we have a really extreme outlier and we find the mean, say you got all really, really good test scores. You were all in the 90s, and then you had a really bad day and you got like a 50% on a test. That would really take your mean down, but if we arrange the numbers in order, your number in the middle is probably going to be still a pretty high number. So the median would be a better value there. Unfortunately, Skyward does not give us the opportunity to grade by the median. What Skyward does, though, sometimes it gives the opportunity to drop the lowest grade, and I occasionally will do that if there's a particular test that an entire class does poorly on. Okay, last one is the mode, and this is considered to be a measure of center, but it doesn't really measure the center in quite the same way as the other values. You can tell me what the mode is. Bailey? Yeah, it's the number that appears the most. The value that appears the most. The mode doesn't actually even have to be a number. We could be talking about ice cream flavors and we could pick the mode. Like, say most people liked chocolate, that appeared on the list the most, that would be the mode. So we'll say the value that appears the most. And as I just said, it can be used when it's non-numeric. So if we have non-numeric data, the mode would be a good representation. Also, if we're trying to find the most popular or the most common, we would use the mode. I'm going to write most common. So if I wanted to know the most common test score, I might look at my list and say, wow, there are so many people who scored an 89 on this test. That would be the mode. It's not as useful for that sort of thing. It's mostly useful if we want to know when something is most popular, like ice cream flavors. Okay, measures of dispersion. What does it mean to disperse? Just in English. Sam? To separate or to spread out. So measures of dispersion tell how much spread is in a set of data, how far spread out the data is. One measure of dispersion is the range. And the range tells the difference between the greatest, I forget what letters I just wrote and it stopped. Let's see. There we go. Greatest and least values in a data set. So we're just taking the biggest number, the smallest number, finding the difference, or subtracting. When we look at box plots, they also show dispersion because the box, when we make a box plot, we can see the range. We can also see something called the interquartile range. You may remember that from last year. We'll be talking about that quite a bit more this year. Okay, third objective is to actually find measures of central tendency and dispersion. Our example says, what are the mean, median, and mode of the bowling scores below? And what measure of central tendency best describes the scores? And then it also asks us, what is the range of the data? Be careful when there are multiple questions like this. Make sure you answer all of them. I often have test questions where if I ask more than one question in a like say number 3 has 3 questions like this, often people will miss one of them. So just kind of as an aside, be careful when you have multiple questions like this. Okay, since I'm going to be finding median as well, first thing I'm going to do is put these numbers in order. So looking at my numbers, my smallest number is 104. I'm going to cross them off as I write them, and I actually have 3 of them, so I'm going to write all 3. 104, 104. 104. My next highest number is 109. Next I have 113, 117, let's see, 136. I have to write this one down there. And 189, which would be a really good bowling score. Okay, to find the mean, I'm going to add up all of those numbers and then divide by how many there are. So I'm finding the sum of my values, and then I'm dividing by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the sum of the numbers, and then I'm dividing by 8 because there are 8 numbers. And I did not write down exactly what the sum is, but when you find the sum of these numbers and you divide by 8, you get 122 as your mean. Okay, what would the median be? Anyone tell me that? Just from looking at the data? Bailey? 111. It's the number right in between 109 and 113, which if it's a whole number, often you can just think, okay, well, the number that would be right in the middle is 111. So median is 111. And what is the mode? Zane. The number that appears the most. 104. So the mode is 104. Which measure is the best one to describe these scores? Based on what I told you when we were making the chart, which one would be the best one to use here? Liz? The mean? Why? What did it say in our chart? What did it say was the best time to use the mean? There's no outlier. Do you guys agree that there's no outlier? Olivia?
Would it be the median?
Okay, why would it be the median? Okay, well, you should use the median if there's an outlier. So I guess this boils it down to, is there an outlier in this set of data? I see some people nodding, some people shaking. I think there's an outlier. I would consider this 189. If I were bowling with the person who got a 189, even 136 is a bit higher. All these scores are kind of centered together around the same numbers. There's not a whole lot of spread in between them. This is a spread from 104 to 136. We only have a spread of like 32 points. But to go from this number to the next number is a spread of 53 points. So we're really, really making a jump here. So I would consider this to be an outlier, and I think a better representative would be this. I think this is our best measure. Okay, then what is the range of the data altogether? Rosa?
85.
Yes, range is 85. So if we take our highest score, 189, we subtract 104, we have a range of 85. If we got rid of this top score, if this person had not been bowling with us, we would have a much smaller range of only 32. Okay, now this is where we actually use a little bit of algebra. So this goes a little bit beyond what we did in 7th grade. Your grades on 3 exams are 80, 93, and 91. What grade do you need on the next exam to have an average of 90 on 4 exams? This is really practical because you could actually take all of your grades in Skyward and you could figure out, what do I need to score on the next big test in order to get an A in this class? Okay, so when we're doing this, remind me again, what do we do to find the average or to find the mean? Sophia?
Add up those scores and divide by the number.
Okay, we're going to add up all the scores. Well, we have 4 scores, but we don't know the 4th score, right? That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to let the letter X equal my 4th score. So now I'm going to add those numbers up. So I have 80 plus 93 plus 91 plus X. I don't know my 4th score. And then I have 4 scores, so I'm going to divide by 4. And I want to have an average of 90. So I'm going to say equals 90. You could also set this up as an inequality. You could say that you want your score to be greater than or equal to 90. In fact, I think we did some problem similar to this when we did our inequality unit. Okay, so if I sum all of these up, actually, let me first, I'm going to multiply by 4 first. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. Get rid of the 4. And then I have 80 plus 93 plus 91 plus x equals 360. If I add 80, 93, and 91, I get 264. So I have 264 plus x equals 360. Subtracting 264 from both sides gives me x equals 88. No, I'm sorry, it gives me x equals 96. I thought that was a little low. 96. Okay, any questions about what I just did? Okay, next one is one for you to try. So you're going to be setting it up the same way, except that you have the same grades, but you need to decide what you need on your next exam to have an average of 88, and then also answer question B. So I'm going to pause the video. Okay, let's start to go over this because we're soon going to be out of time. Hannah, can you tell us how we would set this problem up?
So 80 plus 93 plus 91 plus x over 4 equals 88.
Good. And then what did you get as an answer for x?
88.
X equals 88. So they need to get an 88 in order to have an 88% average. How many of you got to part B? Okay, let's see. Sam, can you tell us what you got for B?
Well, I was just starting on
Okay, you were starting on it. Sam, did you get an answer? What did you get?
110.
Okay, so when you set B up the same way, you find that in order to get an average of 92, this person has to get a score of 104. So is that possible, Van?
No, unless we get something.
Yeah, unless there's extra credit, which it's not because it says 100 is the highest possible score. But once in a while, you know, in a test in here, there could be extra credit. Okay, any questions about this? Okay, we're going to stop there on the notes. That's as far as we're going to go for today. Your assignment is page 742, 1 through 14. That covers just what we covered today.